Yo, what up? It's me, Kyoke. And first of all, sorry that I'm missing the first 1 minute of this clear pull. Might be lost to the sands of time. Anyways, this is the full raw footage of the first and currently only Enraged Golden Bahamut kill. You may have seen the video I made where I talked about the entire journey from the conceptualization to the end of it. And I got a lot of positive feedback for that, and I appreciate everyone that checked it out and left a nice comment. Maybe I'll make more videos like that in the future, but first I've got to do cool stuff in the game worth talking about. Anyways, this is me playing Summoner for this group. I will say, as the sole DPS, my role in the group was by far the easiest out of everyone in the team. In a way, I kind of got carried, since as a Summoner, you don't have to do anything special for the Enraged Golden Bahamut kill besides just do damage the same as normal. The healers and tanks in the party had to do so much of both planning, flexing, and had to take on a lot of extra responsibilities to get through the fight. So shout out to them. They were the real goats of this clear. I was just there to hit buttons and do damage. Since something really interesting happens at the start of the fight, besides just having a kind of scuffed team comp, I can just kind of yap about anything until it gets later into the fight. So for the video I made, I try to make it as understandable as possible for even people that didn't play Final Fantasy XIV, and I think it kind of worked, because some people weren't that familiar with UCOB or with the ultimate scene or with ultimate raiding, and they still found the story enjoyable. So I think I accomplished my goal within that front. Sorry if you already knew everything about UCOB and had to sit through me explaining how the fight works, but I did add chapters to skip ahead if you kind of knew the basics already. So the neural link in the video here, it's supposed to go on the 3 marker, but it got dragged outside the 3 marker. It's not that bad of a thing. Like it didn't cause any issues per se. It was just kind of funny, and we memed about it a lot in this pool. I'll also say the grind of this challenge was definitely probably the hardest part mentally. Just having to do the basic first 4 phases over and over again just to have one attempt that you'll probably just wipe to because a tank will get crit autoed and then Bahamut will mow down everyone else pretty fast. But having a group of friends that you can talk to while you're just doing the same grind over and over makes things a lot more entertaining. And it became a bit less of the grind and more about just hanging out with your friends and hitting buttons for 14 minutes and then locking in for the last 5 minutes. It is still an ultimate fight though at the end of the day, so you do have to play competently throughout the entire thing, but everyone here has hundreds of clears and knows how to do things, so after all that time spent in UCOB, it's almost second nature by now of just doing the mechanics properly. Kind of funny. You can do anything in Final Fantasy XIV, and I decided to one trick a 7-year-old fight that isn't even that popular. But, you know, playing with these guys is honestly some of the most fun I've had in the game. And came from something I wouldn't have expected, really. So yeah, there's a lot of different communities that you can be a part of, and you can find it in the most unexpected places sometimes. Like for me was the UCOB Party Finder. So if you feel like you don't belong anywhere, just look around. It could be raiding, it can be other things, it could be fishing, it could be RP, it could be G-posing, but there will probably be something that you find interest in and people that are interesting. So look around and you might be able to find something. Oh, here in this transition, one of our Dark Knights actually ran through the fireball successfully without dying. Normally gives you a dot, but if you leave the fireball in time before the dot ticks you, you survive. And they've been trying to do that every single pull, and they finally got it on this run, which ended up being the clear run. And since in phase 3 you want to fail the DPS check anyways, it doesn't really matter if you die, so you do get to mess around a little bit since the goal of the challenge is to fail the phase 3 DPS check after all. So as long as it doesn't cause a wipe, then you kind of just mess around until you get to the final phase. So for this entire Bahamut phase, we try to stand in the Neuralink. If you don't know, the Neuralink reduces your damage output by 90% or something while you're standing in it. So you do almost no damage. Which is perfectly fine in our goal after all. But just something funny. It's like pressing your rotation optimally, but nerfing yourself in a way that you're actually not doing damage at all.
Oh, there's a pixel, what? There's a pixel, guys. Get here.
What else to talk about? I wrote down a couple of notes. You want to attempt this challenge yourself? It's actually very doable. As long as you have a pretty decent understanding of UCOB. A lot of it comes down to luck, I'll say. Especially in the final phase, you want to just get lucky and have the correct people chosen for these stacks, and also don't get crit autoed. But there is also a bit of skill involved in properly mitigating and having a plan for different things that can happen. The reason we have 5 tanks instead of 4 tanks, even though there's only 4 tank busters in the final phase, is that we had a flex tank that if they got chosen for a stack, they could use the extra invuln we had as a way to survive one of the quote-unquote unsurvivable stacks. And it would prevent a death, which is pretty good in the final phase, not losing your Phoenix buff like that. But it also means that if a tank does use their invuln to survive a stack, they have to, all the other tanks have to adjust to that tank because the mid plan is no longer static, since any tank can get chosen for a stack. And now you're gonna have to manually adjust what you're doing to accommodate for that. So it's not a static mitigation as long as you're going to the, as long as you're going through the flexing route. You also can run 4 tanks and 2 DPS and 2 healers and just pray that non-important people get chosen each time. And that'll work too. That one requires a little bit more luck, but requires less thinking involved since you can use the same mitigation every single pull. As long as you get lucky. We chose a kind of balance in between. Balance of having to not require extremely lucky situations, but also comfortable enough with clearing the fights. We kind of chose an in-between balance between 6 tanks and 4 tanks. 6 tanks would give you the biggest survivability, but the lowest damage, which means everyone has to play better. And 4 tanks gives you more damage as a team, but you have to get luckier. So we made a balance with the 5 tanks and 1 DPS, and it worked out. Even though our final phase RNG for this clear wasn't perfect ideal, it was good enough that we still cleared, even though it was a little close. And if you want to try this now, it's a little bit easier in Dawn Trail. We did this back in Endwalker, but now that Dark Knight has a pretty good Dark Mind button that got buffed in Dawn Trail, I think it will make the final phase a little bit easier. You also have better food and consumables, so that'll make your damage a bit higher too. There was the LB nerf in Dawn Trail if you're running duplicate jobs and ultimates. But that only affects passive LB gen. In Enraged Golden, every single auto gens you LB, so you get so much active gen of LB, I don't think it actually affects the breakpoints of getting LB3s in time. So if that's not an issue, then the challenge is easier currently. And I'd recommend people try it out if You want to do something spicy. It's honestly kind of cool doing something that was not intended to be possible by the devs. It's almost like a rebellion. The devs putting in this hard-coded fail condition saying you're supposed to die now, but then in a sense rebelling against it and not dying and clearing anyways. It's kind of cool, honestly. Someone pointed this out in the comments too, but there also is one other quote-unquote impossible phase, which is DSR phase 6, the double dragons. If you fail their intended mechanics, the dragons enrage and do 5 times damage. They also take reduced damage, which makes it a lot harder than Enraged Golden Bahamut. Currently, I think it's extremely impossible to be enraged double dragons. Maybe one day in the future it will be possible to defeat one enraged dragon. It'll take a lot of extra work for that. Like, I don't think the current gear and food you gets you anywhere close to killing like an enraged Nidhogg from the very start. You can technically kill the enraged dragons if they enrage at the very end. You know, it's happened to me a few times. That's only for like the last few seconds of the phase. If they enrage at the start, you're pretty much cooked. But I would really like to see a team do that one day. Killing enraged double dragons. Or even an enraged single dragon would be really impressive. Anyways, end of ads. It's about time to lock in for us. And heading into Enraged Golden Bahamut. I'm not sure if Bahamut crit autoed any times in our clear pool. Didn't really check. But I'm guessing not, so we actually did get lucky. In the video, there was a brief clip where one of our tanks got crit autoed for 50k from a single auto attack, and that was on a tank. So crit autos are pretty scary.
I think it's that one.
A 50k crit auto when the tanks only have like 23k HP. Which just goes to show how brutal the challenge is, that something as random as that will just delete a tank. And the tanks did get pretty low several times in the clear pool, and for the final stack I think we were missing Mitt, which is why the squishies got lower than they should have. If the boss high roll damage a little bit more, I think some of us would have died and we might have lost the run, but it worked out in the end. So yippee. It's funny how the comms of the group goes from just messing around for 14 minutes into dead silence in the final phase, besides callouts. Because everyone is just so locked in, trying to make the use of this attempt. So, and not having to repeat another 14-minute grind just to get back to another attempt. No, and regarding Exaflares, I will bring up the double mid dodge we did at the end. I got a few comments saying that it was just a flex, which in a way it is, but double mid dodges, if you know how to do them, they're actually safer than dodging normally, which is an insane thing to say for someone that is familiar with UCOB Exaflares, but not super familiar with the fight. But trust me, it actually is easier and safer if you know what you're doing. It requires less movement, and we were willing to bet our entire run on the fact that it was, as you saw in the video. But it does require pretty detailed knowledge of the fight, so I don't blame you for thinking that it's not good, even though it is. And for the people that say that this clear didn't take a lot of mechanical skill, I mean, I see where you're coming from. It wasn't as mechanically intensive as, let's say, the no tank UCOB clear we had, but it was still very much a challenge for the healers that had to full heal the tanks every 3 seconds, and also the tanks that had to have a constant stream of plan mitigation rolling, and also a flex plan for in case one of the tanks had to use invuln early to survive a stack. As a DPS, I didn't have to do anything. So you're correct that my job was easy, but the other 7 supports in the party did have a significantly more challenging role than a normal UCOB clear. Oof, the Dark Knight almost died here. The auto did a little bit more than they would have died right before the invul, and then we would have wiped. Like I said before, having healers die actually makes the healing so difficult. But they made it through, they clutched it out. And the Dark Knight here almost dies also to auto attacks, even through mitigation. But in a sense, we got lucky. Anyways, final Enraged sequence. We had about maybe 3 GCDs before Enrage, so we were ahead of pace by an okay amount. It's so dead. Okay, no. Oh my god.
Okay.
World first. Oh 07, boy. Thank you for your service. I don't know. Not a crazy video. I just wanted to upload the raw footage for archival sake.
Achievement.
And Yippee, probably my favorite challenge run I've done in this game. And we weren't sure if we were even going to get a totem at the end of the fight, since Enraged Bahamut wasn't intended to be cleared after all. Like, maybe the code was designed so Golden Bahamut wasn't the real Bahamut and you only got the totem for clearing Bahamut. But we did get our single totem, which is cool. Honestly, I think it might have been cooler if we didn't get a totem, which would show just how much we broke the devs' expectations. But yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you around.
Dude, I never thought UCOM could be so hard.
For real.
That was fun though, dude. That was so
I'm
fun.
gonna do TOS abiding.
Whoa.
Wait, I need to do it. We need to do it here. We need to do it here.
Whoa.
Oh, true. Everybody needs to sit in a line.
Wait, how are you doing that?